Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We are live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios, and we're on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. We're also coming to you on Facebook at the Rock Health and Wellness Center's Facebook page. A lot of times we get shared by the radio station, so we could be on the Walk by Faith Facebook page as well. We're on Twitter, X. Can't quit calling it Twitter. We're on X and we're on Facebook. So I was having a conversation earlier today, and one of my guys said, "Oh, what channel is your show on?" And I told him all the channels that the show was on. I was like, all the people that want to watch the show. And the rest of them just haven't heard about it yet, right? That's what we got to figure. So we're ready. We had a good show last night. We're going to continue it too, because I think this whole week I'm just going to talk about doctors who influence me. Last night we talked about Dr. Mark Hyman, and I'm going to read a little bit more of his book tonight for you guys that listened to last night's show. Maybe you'll want to get a little bit more of it tonight. So that's something that we're going to get into. I think I'll just take this whole week and talk about that, because I really do appreciate those guys. I never met Dr. Hyman. I never had a conversation with him. He's a contemporary person that right now he's in practice. He sees people. He actually tries to make the world a better place, and so he's busy. And but we get to share. It's there's a lot of downfalls to this whole internet, and there's a lot of downfalls to all this social media. There's a lot of things that it does bad for us, but there are some really cool things that it gets to do for us too. And we get to get exposed to some great knowledge from some really smart people all around the world, and that's just super fun for me. I listen to it a lot. Matter of fact, we referenced last night the Chris Cuomo, Dr. Redfield video. Well, there's another one that I've been breaking down. I will break it down. It broke me down really. This last night, today, we who wrestle with God. It's the sins of Adam and Eve, and it's from Jordan Peterson. And I don't know. Good evening and welcome. Sorry, hang on. Yeah, it's on his page. It's on Jordan Peterson's page. So let me just check and make sure. Yeah, it's part of his video series. Sometimes people they'll copy stuff and put it on, and it won't belong to him, but this comes right off of Dr. Peterson's page himself. He's one that influences me a lot. He's a super smart dude. If you guys don't know who that is, Jordan Peterson, and I talk about him a lot here on the show, but he's a he's a clinical psychologist out of Canada, and he's a deep thinker, and he sets and puts things together, and then he's a really good teacher in the way that he kind of sends it out to you and gives you information so that you can get smarter. I mean, that's why I listen to him. I got a long way to go, but I listen to him so I can get smarter too. So I really do appreciate it. A couple of house cleaning stuff. Just some things I wanted to remind you guys about. This is a health and wellness facility. This is a chiropractic wellness facility that's based in functional neurology. That's what the Rock Health and Wellness Center is, and it's the best thing I know to help with health. And so that's what we do. We do some really cool stuff here in the office. We've got a gym in the office where we can do fitness classes. If you guys are not in a fitness class and you would like to be in a fitness class, I've got some room in our fitness classes that you could come join us. I've got some room in my 6 a.m. class. I've got some room in my 8 a.m. class. My 8 a.m. class is for 70 and older group. So if you're out there and you're a 70 and older person and you'd like to come join us, then you can go to the rock.health we have and click on fitness. And there's a whole page on the Rock Fitness at the rock.health that can explain to you what we do, the type of workouts we do. And they really do. I hate to steal a line from a person here in town, but the proof is in the pudding, as he says, right? But when I watch the people who've been doing this for 2, 3, 4 years now, I think we're all in our 5th year of working out. it's just obvious that how much better they're doing, how much their whole body. One of my ladies told me on Monday, she's like, I've had this pain in my back forever, and I never thought it would go away, and it's just been doing so much better. And so it's the whole. You got to eat yourself into health. You got to make sure that you're getting the nutrition. You got to make sure that you're getting the fitness. You're going to move. You got to get your body to move, and so that's just one part. We do that. We do the gym. We do the fitness. If you're interested, we got neurofeedback, and we've talked about that a couple times now on the show. But we've got neurofeedback, and man, we're finding some really, really interesting things when we start to map people's brains. And it almost makes me wonder if there is anybody that has a normal brain. I don't know for sure. The testing says that there is, but there's a lot of stuff going on in people's heads. We should give each other a little bit of a break, kind of give each other a little, have a little bit of patience with each other every once in a while, because I'm telling you, there's a lot going on in people's heads that you have no idea about. You look at them, you think they're normal, and you think everything's going fine, but it's not. And there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So that's something that we do. Neurofeedback, we do the brain mapping and the neurofeedback. We got an Ultra G. My mom came up today. She's Friday was 3 weeks post knee replacement, and she's been doing some exercises at home. And she came up today and got on the Ultra G and started her rehab with us here. And so she's gonna walk on the treadmill. The Ultra G, in case you don't know about it, is an anti-gravity treadmill where we can put you in there. We put you in a pair of shorts. We zip the shorts into the machine, and it blows up. There's air that blows up in there, and it takes up to 80% of your body weight off of you. So mom's come up, and it's got this really strong thick metal bar around you, so that it really decreases your chances of falling. It's very stable, very strong and stable. And so mom was in there today. She got 10 minutes of walking done, got that knee firing, got that brain firing. And so that's something we do. If you need to get on there, all my older people who get on there, they just do so much better. I got a girl with cerebral palsy. I picked her up today out of her wheelchair, put her on the machine. It took a team of us to get her all on there. Her mom helps us out, and Bo Dillon here in the office helps us out. Brooke will help us out as well. And so we got all that. We all got her on there, got her zipped in there, and then she walked for 8 minutes this morning. Then she came and got adjusted. And she just does, her mother reports that she just does so much better. Her overall attitude is great. Today I told her, I said, you seem really tall today. You're getting tall. And she laughed. She's got she's got a great sense of humor, because she won't hold anything back. But she said, thanks, I guess. Like, I don't really know what you're supposed to say to that. It's not really a compliment. And I was like, yep, that's funny. But my point was, she's got some tone. She's got a little bit of tone that maybe she hasn't had in a while, to be able to get herself into extension and to get her legs stretched out a little bit. She was doing pretty good. So that's something that we do. Another thing that we do, we talk about the nutrition all the time, but the omega-6-3 test, we've got that here in the office. We can test your omega-6-3 ratio, give us some information about that. And we've got that. We've got all kinds of tests. We've got hemoglobin A1C, if you want to know what your A1C is. We've even got some, I just grabbed 3 of these before the show started, but this is a prenatal DHA. So if you got anybody in your family that's thinking about getting pregnant and you want to know if the mom has enough DHA, or if the mom's already pregnant, then we can do that same thing. It's just a finger prick test. So you just prick your finger, get a little drop of blood, put it on here, send it off, and it's pretty good. We got B vitamins. We can check your B vitamins. We can check your vitamin D level as well. All those are things that we do here in the office. And then we have a special partnership with Standard Process. And so Standard Process, we actually have a website, therock.standardprocess.com, and you can get you can order your own Standard Process supplements if you're interested in doing something like that. There's a new one that just came out. If you guys need a greens vitamin, like a green smoothie, some of you guys will do that. Some of you have a red smoothie that's more fruit based. And some of you might want to be interested in a greens smoothie. We got that right here. SP Power Mix is what it's called. A powerful blend of superfoods with ingredients from our certified organic farm. Um, Tons of nutrition, tons of nutrients in this thing that you guys might be interested in. So if you're one of those people that don't eat your vegetables and you like to try to find and get some nutrition in there, that's it. It's called SP Power Mix, and it comes in a big jug, and it's part of your daily routine. The other thing that is very handy with the standard process is they've got what they call health interest, and so they've got this this whole thing broken down for us, and it is really um, long, and they'll take all these different types of. I can give you a kind of a preview of that, but they'll give us. They've got it broken down into the different areas of like blood sugar and metabolism. That's one of them, and it's like what supplements help support blood sugar and metabolism, brain and cognition, bone, joint, and muscle, men's health, women's health, vitamins and minerals, sleep, stress, and mood, and so many more. Fish oils and omegas, liver and detox, digestive health, general health, heart and circulation, healthy aging, immune system, fitness. So there's a lot of stuff. So you say healthy aging. What are some of the things that are under there? B Vitality with CoQ10, Zypan for digestion. If you guys have any sort of digestion problems like acid reflux or anything like that, we use Zypan a lot, and it really does help people do. And then there's Regenerflex, sorry. Um, Cataplex D, General Health Packet, Tuna Omegas, Cardio Plus, B Vitality with CoQ10, especially if you guys are taking statin drugs. If you're taking statin drugs really decrease your ability to make CoQ10, and it's super important to your heart function to make that. So if you're on those things, which are almost, it's almost like every single patient that I'm on. It's almost like a candy mix or something with a statin drug and some sort of blood pressure medication. Like I see that almost every single day with a new patient. It's like a statin drug, a blood pressure medication, some sort of thyroid type issue, whatever. There's some things there that it's there's a better way to live if you're interested. Man, I got checked on that today, by the way. I would drive down the street and I was thinking about Ozempic, and because I was thinking about a certain person that's been on that Mounjaro or Ozempic or whatever, and I was just thinking about the conversation that I've had with people who are taking that, and I don't care. Like, I mean, I care about people, and I want people to be as healthy as possible, and I want them to at least have the knowledge of things so that they can get the knowledge to make the best decisions for themselves. But I don't care if a person chooses to take Ozempic. If they're a grown person, they want to do that. It's your life. You can do whatever you want to do. That's totally fine. But we just try to help. It's like the thing that came to me when I was driving I was driving back from Littlefield. I was on the highway. I saw some sort of vehicle that made me remember a patient, and then I just started thinking about the whole process. And there's no hate with that. It's kind of the thing. There's no condemnation. I'm not condemning a person for taking Ozempic. I'm not hating a person for taking it. I care about that person, and I want them to know that thing is not serving them well. It's probably going to make them sick in the long run, and all the statistics is saying that it's 50% muscle mass that you lose. So if you lose 50 pounds, you really didn't lose 50 pounds of fat. You lost 25 pounds of fat, and you lost 25 pounds of muscle mass. And there's all kinds of statistics that say that loss of muscle mass is just completely tied into mortality. Like, increases your chances of death. All-cause mortality is related to a decrease of muscle mass. So you really it's not great. So, but having said that, it makes me it kind of reminds me that, and it says in my brain, it's like, look, We do things that try to help you be well. And if you want to try something, if you want to do something completely different, go ahead. I just want you to know there's some places here with some things that you can do. You can take Zypan instead of taking some sort of Rolaids or something like that, some sort of proton pump inhibitor. We go the other direction. We want to increase the acid in your stomach, but we just want it to stay in your stomach. That's the big thing for us. The statin drug decreases. The statin drug is because your cholesterol is high, and your cholesterol is high not because your Uncle Joe or your Aunt Jenny or whatever. Like, not because of that. That part of it is. And I'm going to read a chapter here in a minute in Dr. Hyman's book about epigenetics, and I don't buy that one bit. I don't buy that the reason my cholesterol is high or my blood pressure is high is because of my dad or my grandpa. My dad and my grandpa had their own life. That we all have the same genetics, at least parts of it. But if you put those genetics in the proper environment, they'll express health. There's no question about it. So if they're not expressing health, that means they're not in the proper environment. So they're either not getting the fuel or the activation that they need. They're not getting the proper nutrition. They're not getting getting that nutrition to the cell. There's some sort of interference along the way. There's some sort of problem, and that's why we talk about all the things that we talk about. And another big reason that you have high cholesterol is because of the sugar, and the sugar helps. It breaks down the blood vessel wall, creates a pothole in your blood vessel. Your body uses cholesterol to patch up the pothole, and you decrease your sugar content, and you'll decrease your cholesterol content as well. And it's not blamed on red meat. And I don't think I think there's way too much that goes against red meat. Red meat just needs to be fed grass. That's it. So, okay, let's get into this. I got an article for you tonight. We're going to transition. I have had this question lots of times, and people want me to do something. I remember back when we were doing the Wellness Wednesday show with Ken Adams on the Thin Line. If you don't watch on, you can get that on 98.7. You can get it on Facebook. I'm sure you can go to Ken Adams on Facebook, and you can get the Thin Line with Ken Adams. But when we were doing that show, there was lots of controversy, lots of questions about cannabis. And I just want to share with you two articles. I am not a cannabis expert, and I am of the opinion that if some of these things, I don't think that the suffering, like what I watched my dad go through, I tried to get him to take cannabis. I really did, because the suffering that he went through was it was horrible. So I'm not an anti cannabis guy, but these are the stories, these are the articles that I see, and I see them a lot I just happen to check my list, and I know, and we all know, because we talked about it last night, how about when Dr. Redfield's talking about all that lies that the government gave to us that makes us not trust them. I get it, and I didn't trust them way before that. So I've been exposed to this thing since March of 2000. So this isn't new to me. I've been studying this thing for 24 years now. But when COVID came along, it just took it to another level, right? Well, so I want to just say that before I read this, because this comes from the Journal of the American Heart Association. Now, they got an agenda. Don't kid yourself. And I don't know exactly what their agenda is, but they did do a study, and there's a bunch of guys, and the primary author is from Harvard. It says the association of cannabis use with cardiovascular outcomes among U.S. adults. And so they're trying to see, is there any outcome, is there any increase or decrease, whatever, of cardiovascular disease whenever someone is using cannabis. And these guys are PhD, MD. The primary author is from Harvard. So these authors assessed the association between cannabis use, primarily from smoking, and cardiovascular outcomes among the general population, among never tobacco smokers, and among younger individuals. The assessed population was 434,104 individuals. So there's a lot. There's a lot of people in this group, right? It's not a small group. Ages 18 to 74 from the Behavior Risk Factor Surveillance Survey from 27 American states and 2 territories. This sample is 3 to 17 times larger than prior studies, making it very robust. So, fair enough, right? And this does come from the Journal of the American Heart Association, March 5th, 2024, Volume 13, Number 6, Article E030178. So, the authors controlled for tobacco, smoking, age, sex, race, and ethnicity, body mass index, diabetes, alcohol use, educational attainment, and physical activity. So they looked at composite coronary heart disease, they looked at myocardial infarction, and they looked at the odds ratio. In this study, the prevalence of daily cannabis use was 4%, occasional, median of 5 days per month, cannabis use was 7.1, and no cannabis use was 88.9. Cannabis use is increasing in the population, and we know that, and I don't want to, there's a lot. And I'll just read this one sentence. From 2002 to 2019, past year prevalence of U.S. adult cannabis use increased from 10.4% to 18%, whereas almost daily use, 300 plus days per year, increased from 1.3% to 3.9%. So, adult belief in great risk of weekly cannabis use fell from 50 in 2002 to 28 in 2019. I don't really know. So, the reasons to believe that cannabis use is associated with atherosclerotic heart disease: endocannabinoid receptors are ubiquitous throughout the cardiovascular system. Tetrahydrocannabinol, the active component of cannabis, has hemodynamic effects and may result in syncope, stroke, and myocardial infarction. Smoking, the predominant method of cannabis use, may pose additional cardiovascular risk as a result of inhalation of particulate matter. And secondhand cannabis smoke exposure is associated with endothelial dysfunction, a precursor to cardiovascular disease. So that's why they thought. But here's their findings. There was a significant association between cannabis use and myocardial infarction, with 25% increased odds of myocardial infarction among adults. So basically a heart attack. 25% increased odds among adults using cannabis daily compared with non-use. Cannabis use is associated with adverse cardiovascular outcomes, with heavier use, more days per month, associated with higher odds of adverse outcomes. The effect exhibited a dose-response relationship with more days of use associated with higher risk. In those who had never used tobacco, cigarettes, and at risk for premature cardiovascular disease, men less than 55 years old, women less than 65 years old, cannabis was significantly associated with the increased risk of composite of coronary heart disease by 136%, by stroke by 140%, composite of coronary heart disease and myocardial infarction and stroke by 113%. So that's kind of interesting right there. Those who had never used tobacco, cigarettes, like ever before, and then they used cannabis, they had an increase of 140%, associated with the increased risk of stroke by 140%. That's an interesting number. Like if you've never been a smoker, and then all of a sudden you decide, if you're a man less than 55 and a woman less than 65, and then all of a sudden you decide you're going to try to smoke some weed, and you start doing that pretty regular, there's an increased chance right there. So in the subgroup analysis of 176,936 people, of those who never used tobacco, cigarettes, and e-cigarettes, cannabis use had a strong positive association with stroke and the composite outcome of those other things that they measured. So the conclusion, cannabis has a strong statistically significant association with adverse cardiovascular outcomes independent of tobacco use and controlling for a range of demographic factors and outcomes. So the data suggests that cannabis use is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease and for premature cardiovascular disease. Now, you may have a totally different opinion on that. I'm not really sharing my opinion on that. I'm just sharing the article that I got today on that. So that's my. It makes sense, and I've got another one to support it that we used in the past that talked about. There are several well-recognized complications associated with marijuana use, including psychiatric, respiratory system, and cardiovascular disorders. The adverse cardiovascular effects of marijuana have been recognized for over 40 years. So that's just an article. It came out today on my article review software subscription that I use. Thought I'd share it with you. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about some myths. So we're going to continue with the myths from Dr. Mark Hyman that we talked about last night. So we'll be right back with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are very, they're very intense about, about marijuana. And the thing that it's hard for us to know because, a lot of times who's pushing the legalization of marijuana, right? Who's trying to push everybody to smoking weed? It's not usually the health and wellness people out there that is pushing that stuff. Now, Willie Nelson's been 90 years old, right? And he's an avid cannabis smoker. And I said some bad things about Willie a few years ago, and I really apologize for that. But I watched his documentary on Netflix or whatever. It was really good, and the reason he smokes it is for a reason. There's a lot of anxiety and stuff that he has. So, so you got those outlying people like that. Just don't think that's a great way of using statistics. If you look at 400 and something thousand of them, there says, hey, look, there's a 140% increase in stroke if you've never smoked anything, and then all of a sudden you decide to smoke cannabis. So that just might be a little bit of information for a person that's interested in knowing that. That's all. It's not for everybody. Some people don't care. Some people already have their mind made up. But why would it's the same problem we have with that vaccine that we were talking about with Dr. Redfield's conversation last night? Was the people that pushed the heck out of that were the ones that made the most money out of it. I mean, why wouldn't the pharmaceutical industry, why wouldn't Pfizer and Moderna try to get as much money as they possibly could out of it? I mean, it's like, that's pretty much what we all do. We try to take advantage of our opportunities, and I think those guys just saw it as an opportunity. Hey, we ought to take advantage of it. It's not hurting nothing anyway. It wasn't coming from an honest place of integrity. So it's a little hard with that with cannabis too. So, all right, let me get us back on. Okay, hey everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we're talking about doctors who influence me. And last night we started in talking with Dr. Mark Hyman. He's a medical doctor. I read this to you guys last night. He's a co-medical director of Canyon Ranch for almost 10 years and is now the chairman of the Institute of Functional Medicine and the founder of medical director of the Ultra Wellness Center. He's a #1 times New York bestseller and has written a bunch of books. He does a lot of work. This guy does a lot of work. He works super hard. He's got a good team put together. He puts out a lot of stuff, and he teaches a lot of stuff. So I appreciate him. I appreciate the things that I've learned from him, and I appreciate his book. This actually comes. This is the 10-day detox, the blood sugar solution, the 10-day detox diet, and it comes in. I don't know if it's 3 books in the series, or I just had 3 books, and somebody's got them. I've checked them out to somebody, and somebody has them at their house. So maybe they'll bring them back to me someday. If they don't, I'll just buy another copy of them. But um, so we were reading this last night, and we read the myth about a calorie is a calorie, and we know that that's not true. Never has been true. A calorie is not a calorie. But the second one, the second myth that he writes in his book is you can't fight genetics, and that's what I was talking about a little bit earlier about epigenetics. So I'm just going to read it to you. This is coming from his book, The Blood Sugar Solution: 10-Day Detox Diet. Activate your body's natural ability to burn fat and lose weight fast. Mark Hyman, DC, MD. Sorry, he's not a DC. He's an MD. Mark Hyman, MD, author of Blood Sugar Solution. So we're reading from page 43, and I'm just going to read it, and we'll talk about it as we're going through there. But I want you to hear it from his words, not from my words, because I really am trying to share I want to share some of these other thoughts that we get. So it's easy to think your biology is a lottery. You got that fat gene, that diabetes gene. Not much you could do about it. Your parents are overweight. Your grandparents are overweight. Your diabetes runs in your family. You might as well throw in the towel. The good news is that we have decoded the human genome. Scientists have scoured the genome in the hope of finding the magic key to obesity and diabetes. The bad news is that they didn't find anything terribly helpful to the overweight among us. There are 32 genes associated with obesity in the general population. Unfortunately, they account for only 9% of obesity cases. Even if you had all 32 obesity genes, you would put on only about 22 pounds of weight. Our genes only change 2% every 20,000 years. Since obesity, not just being overweight, has risen from 9% to 36% since 1960 and is projected to go to 50% by 2050, if current trends continue, something other than genetics has to be to blame. And it's just a great illustration right there. Our genetics, if you blame your high blood pressure on your genetics, one of my ladies this afternoon, I missed her last week. Last week was her regular adjustment time. Every 2 weeks she gets adjusted, and she was out of the office. She was out of town last week and so we missed her. And she came in today and she said, "Oh, I'm glad I'm here." I said, "I'm glad we got you today." And she said, "Me too. I'm glad I'm here today." She said, my back has just been really stiff this week. And I did some things this weekend, and now my back's really stiff." And she said, and I said, "Well, what do you think caused it?" And she said, "I'm just getting old. Maybe it's just old age," she said. And I said, "Well, how does your front feel?" And she said, "Well, my front feels great." And I said, "Well, what day was it born on?" And she just laughed like that's, I know you guys have heard that before, but it was the idea that her body is not functioning properly because she's old, and she's not even that old. Like maybe she's 70 years old, but she's not even that old. So she said there's a night and day difference between the back and the front. And I'm like, yeah, it's function, right? It's function. So from a genetic standpoint, it's not what he's saying right here. Our genes only change 2% every 20,000 years. We're not really that different genetically than our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents. So if obesity wasn't a big deal 4 or 5 generations ago, not even that long, when my dad was in high school, most of the people were thin people. And you go back and look when his dad was in high school. So my dad just died last month. He was 80 years old. He was born in 1943. So let's put his dad in 1923, Yeah. So 1913 something. Let's put him around that time frame. When my granddad was born in somewhere around 1913, I think that's pretty much what Leslie's grandmother was born. There was you see pictures during that time, and you don't see a lot of obese people. And so then that's just 4 generations. That's 3 generations to me, right? 4 to my kids. It's like, why do we think all of a sudden that it's our genetics that's that way? In truth, it's probably lots of things. Over the last 10,000 years, our food supply has changed dramatically, with sugar consumption going from 20 teaspoons a year to 20 teaspoons a day. Toxins, which we now know cause obesity and are thus called obesogens, have flooded the environment. Our gut flora became toxic because of our high sugar, high fat, low fiber diet and has triggered a huge rise in microobesity. Weight gain due to inflammatory gut bacteria. Our gut flora became toxic because of our high sugar, high fat, low fiber diet, and this has triggered a huge rise in microobesity. Weight gain due to inflammatory gut bacteria. Yeah, remember that. It's so important. It's so important. That was my talking myself off the ledge about that cookie this weekend. It's like, dude, don't do that. Don't mess up your and that one little weakness is gone, by the way. Like I'm not thinking about that cookie. I was like kind of mad at myself that I even had that conversation. But sleep debt. Americans sleep 2 hours less a night than they did 100 years ago. Part of the reason why is because we have so much electricity now. Think about what you used to would have done. And if you didn't have any, if you couldn't see at night, if it got dark, what would you do? You would go to bed. And if you just had a candle and you couldn't hardly see, if that's all you had was a candle, then there are some sort of flame. It would be nothing else to do. So now we can sit there and look at our phones till 2 o'clock in the morning if we want to. So sleep debt. An obesity-causing virus, and obesity-causing viruses have also been implicated. And then there's peer pressure. We imitate the behavior of people in our social network. Research shows we are more likely to be overweight if our friends are overweight and if our parents are overweight. The social thread that connects us may be more important than the genetic ones. That's a big deal, right? The social thread. The social thread that connects us could be bigger than the genetic ones. And we need to be social in order to keep our brains functioning properly. So that's kind of a conundrum we got ourselves into. If it really helps us to be social, to keep our brains functioning properly, and society is overweight and out of shape, and we spend a lot of time with those people, there's a really good chance that not only are we going to it would help our brains to be with them, to be social, but it's also going to work against us because we're probably going to have too much of that peer pressure. There are 100 reasons, but the least of them are genetics, and that's a really mature. That's a mature outlook on the whole thing. There's a lot of different reasons that we're changing in our weight structure, I just don't think it's sound. I don't think it's sound health philosophy to put it on your genetics. And man, if I was selling high blood pressure medication, and you came in and we ran your test and you had high blood pressure, how easy is it to say, dude, it's not your fault. It's not your diet, it's not your exercise, it's not your sleep, it's not your gut bacteria, it's none of those other things. It's simply your genetics. So here, you better just take this pill because then it's your genetics. Like that's not sound. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, here we go. Yes, we are programmed to love sugar and fat. We are programmed to store belly fat in response to sugar so that we can survive in the winter when food is scarce. Genes do play a role, but they are minor contributor to the massive obesity and diabetes pandemic we are facing globally. China is a perfect example of the influence of the Western diet on the global marketplace. When I traveled throughout China 30 years ago, I saw one overweight woman and she was riding a bicycle. Type 2 diabetes was almost unknown. Now China has the most diabetics in the world, and 1 in 5 Chinese over 60 has type 2 diabetes. The Pima Indians had no obesity, diabetes, or chronic disease 100 years ago. Now they are the second most obese group in the world, after the Samoans. 80% have type 2 diabetes, and by the time they are 30 years old. 80%. Wow, that's a lot. Perhaps the most important piece of news when it comes to genes and weight is you can put your genes on a diet and program them for weight loss and health. Yes, you heard this right. You can swap out the genes you have inherited, but you can't. You can't swap out the genes you have inherited, but you can literally reprogram your genes to help you get slim and healthy. How? That's easy. Through food. As I mentioned before, I will mention it again because I consider this perhaps the single biggest medical discovery of this century. Food contains not just calories or energy to fuel our cells, food contains information. Now, that's a massive sentence. Food contains information, and we know it. We know it, and we know that our body collects that data. It collects that data with every bite that goes down through our stomach into our intestines. When it gets into our intestines, well, first it collects it in our mouth because we're tasting it, but then as it moves through and it gets into our intestines, those neuropod cells, they collect information and they send it back. It is the control mechanism that regulates almost every chemical reaction in our bodies by communicating instructions to our genes, telling them whether to gain or lose weight, and to turn on the disease-creating or health-promoting genes. This is the groundbreaking science of nutrigenomics. Never heard that word before. With every bite of food you take, you are sending direct messages to your genes, which control the production of all the proteins of your body. And the proteins, hormone, neurotransmitter, and all sorts of chemical messengers are the very things that control your metabolism, appetite, and health. When you think about it that way, suddenly choosing the right food seems like a no-brainer. It all comes down to quality: whole, real, and fresh. Those are the 3 key words you need to know when it comes to choosing food to program your genes for weight loss and health. Everything else should be considered not food. So that was just one of the myths. And then on this other page over here, it's talking about epigenetics. And if you haven't ever heard that term before, just think about epi means upon. So it's the environment upon your genetics. So it's the environment upon the cell. So epigenetics, a wrinkle in the gene story. We know you can't modify your genetic code, but we also know that you can change how your genes function, which ones are activated or silenced by what you eat. New research has found a way to switch genes on and off or affect how they work. The science is called epigenetics. You have 8 billion letters in your genetic code or book of life. Quite a big book. The code won't change, but which letters get read does change based on inputs from the outside. Starting in your mother's womb, the environment created for you in the womb, what foods, stress, and toxins she was exposed to, will determine how your genes get set for life. This reading or bookmarking is how epigenetics determines much of what happens to you during your lifetime. If your mother ate sugar and junk food and was deficient in vitamins and minerals, the messages from the sugar and nutritional deficiencies will get programmed into your genes and increase your risk of obesity and diabetes. What's worse is that those changes can get transmitted to your offspring, so that your grandmother ate during her pregnancy and what toxins she was exposed to will influence your genes and your grandchildren's genes and risk of disease. But like a cycle of abuse in families, this cycle can be broken. There's the hope. Switching to real food, optimizing your nutrient status, and lowering your load of environmental toxins can help you reprogram your genes in this lifetime. You can change the bookmarks in your book of life so your body is consistently reading instructions from the slim, healthier chapters, not the fat, sick ones. And that's his take right there on epigenetics. And we've discussed epigenetics multiple times, but it's I just got that exposed to me, and I know that whole mechanism because of the genetics that I share with my dad and the diseases that my dad had, and the arthritis, the ankylosing spondylitis, the heart disease, the strokes, the joint pain, the neuropathy, all those sort of things. I just don't forecast. I don't forecast me being that guy that has to deal with all that stuff. Not the same way that my dad did. I just don't see that happening. Just see myself moving and keeping moving and decreasing all that sugar. And there's no medications. Very, very seldom do I ever take any sort of pharmaceutical. Like I did take a Tylenol like in 2007 or something like that. And I did take an Advil after I had my teeth worked on. So very few times. And especially these last 2 years and 3 months, man, it's been great. So if you've been told that you have a genetic problem and you would rather not believe that nonsense, then I'm on your side. I think it's the way you treat your body and the environment that you put your body in is what is causing your body to express itself. That's what your body's doing. It's expressing itself based on the environment it's in, not based on some random set of genetics, which is not random. Okay, we got a few more minutes. Let's just touch on these. I won't read the whole sections, but myth number 3: I can use willpower to control my cravings. How long can you hold your breath underwater? If I tell you to use your willpower to hold your breath for 15 minutes, and that I will give you $1 million if you do, there's still no way you could do this. We are programmed for certain needs: air, water, food, sleep, and sex. These things are essential to our survival. If you are addicted to sugar, I tell you to resist giving into your cravings by using willpower. I might as well tell you to hold your breath for 15 minutes. It won't work. No one wants to be overweight or suffer the emotional or physical consequences of diabetes or obesity. But willpower simply isn't enough to overcome the cravings for chips, cookies, soda, and more. We're up against powerful biochemical mechanisms created by food addiction. Willpower is useless when industrial junk food and sugar are in charge of your brain chemistry. Now, I can attest to this that me personally, I do have a little bit of conflict. I have a little bit of conflict with that right there. And let me explain the best I can, because what he's saying right here is that you can't. It's not willpower that's going to help you. You've got to break the addiction. Okay, let me go a little bit further. The very good news is that breaking these addictions is easier than you might think if you know what to do. And it doesn't take weeks or months. Simply following the exact instruction in the 10-day detox diet will quickly reset your brain chemistry and give you back control over your eating behavior. You don't have to struggle to let go of your cravings. Your cravings will naturally let go of you. Yes, so there is a certain amount of I say that I have a contradiction to it, but as I think about it, it's not so much willpower as it is intention. Like, I think what broke it for me was intention, and first of all, it was 2000 to 2000 and what is it? What are we in? 24, 22, I guess. Because 21. Yeah, because I got COVID in 21. Yeah, 22. So March 3rd of 2022 was an accumulation of time. So it wasn't just like I just all of a sudden one day thought about being healthier. That's not what happened. I um, I tried this multiple times. I did lots of to a 21 day. I did several 21-day detox programs. I did lots of study. I did lots of work to try to get to that point. I did. I would fail. I'd be in and out of failure. Sometimes I'd do good. Sometimes I'd fail. I'd go back and forth, and my weight just kept going. Every time it rebounded, it just kept going up. It would drop for a minute, plateau, raise, drop for a minute, plateau, raise. And it just kept working its way up till it finally got to 283 pounds. I graduated high school at 185 pounds, and I went back to my 30-year reunion at 283 pounds. I was almost 100 pounds heavier than I was when I graduated. So over that time frame, but I became a doctor in 2005. I graduated chiropractic school, got my license in February of 2005. And so it's not like it was just brand new stuff, but from 2005 to 2022, 17 years, I just floated around back and forth for 17 years. It wasn't willpower that made me change. It was intention, and it was competition. It it was competition, and the sentence that I used to say all the time was I couldn't find anything that gave me the same level of competition that I had when I was playing college football and I was coaching college football. Not that I couldn't have become a triathlete, not that I couldn't have found something competitive, not that I couldn't have competed in my business life. I couldn't find anything that had value enough to compete for. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but that is the truth. I couldn't find enough. I couldn't figure out what was valuable enough to compete for until COVID came along, and then those guys threatened my way of life, and knowing the really believing. I don't know if it was a knowing, but it was a really believing about them making that virus in the lab and all that sort of thing, and them trying to kill me with it, just really ticked me off. And it made me focus enough and get intentional enough to be able to break the habit and break away from the sugar for the first time in my life. And what he's saying here is, I could have just followed his 10-day detox program, but I just really think I don't think you could just buy books, follow the program, and then you got it done. I think personally, it has to be the why. Our why has to be great enough. If our why is not great enough, we will sabotage it. And so I finally found a why that was great enough that I wouldn't sabotage it, because I was mad enough about what was going on. And that was enough to help break what he's going to talk about in the rest of this book and in different parts of the book about the neurology that went along with it, and the the brain chemistry that's involved in the addictions and that type of stuff. So that's pretty much all the time we got. I don't want to get into the next section, but you need a program. You need an idea of what you're doing. So it wasn't like a brand new thing for me to try to do it. And if you're out there and you're struggling with your weight and you want some help, I'll help you with it. But I'd also tell you that you're going to have to be the one that makes the decision. And if you're not struggling with your weight, then maybe it's fitness. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just shining your light bright into the world. Like you're going to have to be the one that really gets there and makes that decision that that's what you want to do, so that you can get yourself to the level that you want to get yourself at. Hey, we've run out of time. I appreciate you guys hanging around with us tonight. Appreciate you watching the show. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. 806-794-0400. You can send me a text. You can send me a message on social media. And otherwise, we will see you guys tomorrow night at 6. Have a great night.